Hey guys, Devos for today is back again in John chapter 1. We're going to be in verses 6 through 13. As I mentioned, John does a pretty good job of explaining using very simple words for us to understand. I really didn't see any words in this passage that I thought that you guys would be unfamiliar with. If you are, feel free to look them up or send me a message. Let me know, and I'd be happy to send you the definitions of those words. So yesterday we looked at John's introduction of Jesus. He went all the way back to the beginning before the world was even created, and we saw Jesus with God, working together on their plan for the world and creating the world together. Today the Apostle John moves from looking at Jesus as part of God to Jesus as part of man. But first he starts by introducing Jesus' herald, John, not John the Apostle John, but John the Baptist, or the baptizer. He was the first one to start baptizing in the water. I've mentioned this before in youth group. Herald is a person that shows up before someone else and prepares everyone for their arrival. If you've ever been to a wedding and during the reception, some guy grabbed a mic and said, "Everybody stand up," and he announced the arrival of the bride and groom. That guy's a herald. He's preparing everybody. He's letting everybody know the arrival of the bride and the groom was coming. John the Baptist was Jesus' herald. Verses 6 and 7 says that John was sent into the world by God to prepare the world for the arrival of the light. Yesterday we looked at Jesus as the Word. Just like words can be used to help someone have a picture of the new dress or maybe the sneakers that you bought, you can explain it to them without actually seeing them. Jesus is the Word that helps the world have a picture of what God is like without actually seeing Him. Today, though, the Apostle John introduces Jesus as the light. If you've ever been in a corn maze, somebody can use their words to explain the path to the exit to you. They can tell you which turns to make and explain what the path looks like. But if you're trying to walk the path in the dark, you don't have any flashlights or light source or anything like that, it's going to be pretty impossible to find the path out. Jesus came not only as the Word to help us understand God, to help us have a picture of God without actually seeing Him, and to explain the path to Him, but He also provided the light to help us see and follow the path. The Word, as the Word, He gave us through the Bible, the written words, helping us to understand God. The light He provided for us when He came to earth to be an example. That light was an example to us to show us how we're supposed to live. John then confirms, the Apostle John confirms that John the Baptist was not the light as some people thought, but he was just the herald for Jesus. And says Jesus is the light that gives light to everyone coming into the world. Now this is not everyone, that's every person that comes into the world, but as some other versions read, Jesus was giving light to everyone by coming into the world. Then, as I mentioned earlier, John moves from Jesus being with God to now Jesus entering into the world. Imagine God living in heaven, never being cold or hot or hungry, never being tired or sick or hurt, and Him looking down at man who He created and saying, you know what? These people need an example. They need somebody to show them how to live. And then leaving all of that behind, coming down to earth and being born in a barn, just so He could provide us an example of how we should live, and then ultimately dying to pay for the sins we commit. So that He could not only show us the path to God, but then pay our way there by dying on the cross. If you can imagine all of that, you can start to understand what Jesus did for us. Now, looking at verses 10 through 13, the problem John points out is that many of the people didn't know Him or receive Him. Although He cared for the poor and did many wonderful miracles for those that were sick or hurting, even bringing one guy back from the dead, the response of many of the people was, great, now we got to kill Jesus and this other guy He brought back from the dead. The people didn't understand, they didn't accept the fact that He was God coming to earth for them. However, for those that did understand and did accept Jesus and His death on the cross, including you and me, those He made not just His friends or His followers, but He made them His children. He made us His children. Because if you've trusted in Jesus Christ to be your Savior, you've been born again. This last couple verses say, you've been born of God. Now you're one of God's children. And that's something that doesn't just go away. God never kicks you out of